Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, and today we have David Tian.
Yeah, hello everyone, I'm back again.
And we have Lyra.
Hello.
So when we have David, we want to talk some heavier political stuff, right?
That's right.
Now, so today we want to talk about a website that does political survey. It's called Political Compass. Now, it has been around for more than 20 years, relatively well known, and it's almost a little bit like personality tests, and they will be asking certain prepositions and try to see where you stand in the four quadrant or matrix, and we're just going to mention it. The traditional left and right, which we understood or maybe not really understood. Then we have libertarian, which another word for libertarian will be classical liberal. Then we have authoritarian or totalitarian, depending where you come from. Now, we're going to discuss all these values in depth and also show you our result. But before that, I think Lyra and David are going to just go through the questions, because some of the questions are really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Indeed.
And so they'll go through the questions, and maybe you can pick out the question that kind of stood out. Like just now we had dinner and we asked our friends to do it, and they were like stumped by some of the question, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of but of course, if you are familiar with personality tests, you should know that it's talking about a tendency, a preference, but case by case is different.
Yep.
So don't feel like you're bound by that. We are never bound by what a test says, but it kind of show you where you stand. So later on, David and Lyra, I'm going to ask you whether you agree with the positions that the test kind of place you in, okay? All right, so without further ado, Lyra, why don't you take over?
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the very interesting question is, I will always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. So David, how did you reply?
Yeah, man. It's like this is the second question, but I'm like, whoa. I choose the answer is like I disagree. Why I disagree? It's like, yes, I know I have some relationship with my country, but at the end I found like, let's say my country commit a war criminal. It's like kill thousands and millions of people. I still support the action. I'm like, I will not. But I still might love my country, maybe, yes. So this is my point of view.
So would you categorize love as support,
Love as support. Kind of. In this case.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, David, the way you process the whole question, because so much of the answers and question require some context and some applications. So, for some people, like for example, for me, I'll look at it like, if certain war crimes you mentioned or certain things which the whole world view as really, really bad, we think about World War I, we think about World War II. And for some people, they'll be like, but that's the political party, that's the leaders. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with our culture. So, but it's interesting. I guess what the survey is trying to get, I'm just speculating here, is how nationalist you are, in terms of how proud you are.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But Lyra, how did you answer that?
to be frank, I hold the same view as David, because I was thinking also along the line whereby if let's say we were born in Germany, for instance, like World War II, everyone else is also, I guess it's understandable that all the Germans are thinking that why should we be subject to a more severe punishment than the other countries that are also in the same, committing the same crime. So, but in that sense, I would say the government policy does affect how we live, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I will show my 100% support all the way.
Yeah. If you put it that way, like 100% support, then I think it's pretty justified, so for you to disagree.
But I would say if you viewed it from whether or not you're a nationalist or you're more globalist, then I think I'm more of the former nationalist. First for the country, then only then you see if you have the capacity.
Interesting. So one question already, so much discussion.
Next question more.
Yes.
Choose some more.
No one chooses their country of birth. So it's bullish to be proud of it. My point of view is I want to feel proud of my country. Doesn't mean that I birth in this country is right or wrong for me. It's not linked for me.
Okay.
I cannot choose to be born in Malaysia. Why can I be proud of Malaysia? Doesn't make sense for me. So for my answer is no. it's not foolish. So I disagree with this statement.
Okay. Yeah, again, I think they're trying to get the nationalist drift. And now, by the way, we all can admire certain country for their
Yes.
system.
Yes.
You know, I think we can be open-minded about, you know, like in this show, we always talk about the American experiment because we really, I mean, even from the legal, political point of view, it is a very unique system. It's not perfect, it's not the best. And of course, every system you get some good points. So I think it's not wrong to do that.
Yeah.
So I guess, David, you know, you're right to say you make no apologies for this kind of.
But very interesting. If people feel like I just don't want to be proud of my country, it's okay also.
Yeah. So these people will be more like, you know, I can move to Singapore, I can move to Thailand, I can move to China, I can move to Australia. They don't feel a certain sense of attachment, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly fine, I think.
I'm fine with it also. But I won't call everybody, if you are don't proud of your country, you're foolish.
No, of course not.
So
They just want to, you know, your answer will kind of place you in a certain position of the chart, which we will explain later.
Yeah, next one, I think this is where it comes to race
Race.
or culture. So our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. I guess as Malaysian, this is something that is not uncommon.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, whether consciously or unconsciously, and even the stereotyping, I think in Malaysia, people kind of, like sometimes jokingly, but I think at the back of the mind, they kind of behave like this, you know, like this, the school, the area, the job, like accountant, Chinese people, they were like, you know, car park operator, Indian. You know, that kind of. I mean, there's some stereotyping I can think of because of the industry that I'm in. I mean, do you agree that there's some kind of
More Indian.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Can speak
So-
eloquently.
but having different race focusing on different economic behavior. Now, it could be a historical thing. It could be just the skill set. But is that considering a race superior, you know, because the way the question is phrased, you know, superior, inferior.
Many superiors. I think it's like my race or my culture is better than all of you.
I think
kind
that's
of
what
things.
they're trying to get.
Yeah, I believe that many culture we kind of have the pros and cons. If we compare with others, it's like some races are better in this area. Maybe it's right, but it's not that all of my culture is overall better than you.
Exactly.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, so David, you say something really, really interesting. My culture is better in 1 or 2 or 3 areas. So is that acceptable?
For me,
can we say that?
I agree.
Because
with that.
in the climate of wokeness, in the climate of political correctness, you can't really say that, you know. That is considered racist.
Come to Malaysia.
Yeah. I mean, is it okay to say, look, you know, maybe... I mean, we're talking like some political hot potato here. You know, some people will be like, you know, certain race are better with accounting, with finance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you can only push that to a degree, right? Because there's still the merits, there's still the skill set,
Yes.
and things like that.
Yes. I think for Malaysian, we are more familiar of these kind of questions because we every day this is for us is everyday kind of
So
thing.
not too strange for us, right?
Yeah.
Now one of the thing about political compass, for those of you, if you go to the website, and I think one of the first question people will ask is this being tracked? Okay, so the website say no. Now, of course, I mean, from the design, I don't think they are tracking, you know, but you're not putting your name, you're not putting an ID. The most is your IP. Even if you use VPN, you can say I'm from Venezuela, I'm from Japan, or whatever.
North Korea.
North Korea. so I think it is really the way it's designed is you have the awareness that nobody is looking at your answer, and you can kind of try to answer as honest as possible.
Yeah.
Next one. So shall we go to this part on economy?
Yeah, sure.
one of the question here is controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. So what's your take?
I agree with controlling inflation is more important because I'm now a consumer, so I receive my salary every day. So if the inflation is not controlled, but my salary is still the same, I'm not satisfied with it. So because I have a job, so maybe for the people they do not have a job, they have a different perspective, I think.
The question is very, very interesting because it's almost like a question for economists, because it's like, I mean, of course, we are living in a time where there's a great debate over how to manage inflation because there's a lot of adjustment on interest rate and things like that, which, I mean, they are trying to justify everything is expensive, so we have to bring it down. But that's really more of a left kind of economy, whereas if you focus on creating job, it's more on free market and then say, look, let's let supply and demand push the price, So it's very interesting, and that's why, even those of us who say we are for free markets, we all agree some sort of intervention is needed.
Yes.
So actually, I also put agree. Generally I agree, but I see the question doesn't ask to what degree, how much, and things like that. Those are the context and the nuance. But Lyra, what did you say?
I actually put disagree. Well, I felt like it's more chicken and egg sort of situation. It's like, because if you don't resolve the immediate issue, as in, I guess, to what end do people rely on the welfare of the government? So I personally, I think government intervention in this area might not necessarily be good, because we'll just look at Fed, whereby like Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell, I think all those people, I don't necessarily agree with what they are doing. So hence, because of that, I felt like if people have more jobs, more opportunity, so they are able to make a living, basically. I think they have that right to pursue happiness more than, I mean, if the government is introducing some fiscal policy that is really like very far out and not relatable to them.
Yeah, interestingly, I was just looking at, as part of, after going through the political compass and some of the commentary, then I just stumbled upon, some short video, talking about the Great Depression. And specifically, they look at FDR and Hoover, the two presidents during the Great Depression. And, a lot of people kind of, in a very general sense, say, FDR's New Deal sort of stopped the Great Depression, but it didn't, So, but anyway, this is an economist from UCLA, and he was just saying that based on his research, both of them tried to intervene too much, and in the end, it didn't work out that well. Something else came in. But of course, economics, what they say about economics, right? It's the most complex social science.
Yep.
Because so many variables, and this is maybe the one area where many people can disagree and still have jobs. Talking about the political economic analyst, right? Political analyst, a little bit like that, but you get tembak more easily, I think.
Yeah. Agree.
Okay, let's.
The freer the market, the freer the people. Actually, this question is more broader.
But it's like, a bit linked with the inflation.
The intervene of the government. It's like the freer the market. Let's say we have zero government intervention in market. How about the monopoly? How about the tycoons rising up? Will they torture the people? Will they torture the laborers? Maybe. We see in history there are many of the cases happening. So my choice is like, I don't agree.
I think that question is really kind of like, do you agree with the most free market kind of thing? So it's to the extreme of the right. And David, I definitely agree with you that history shows us that. Of course, when you think about the monopoly busting, and we think about American are the first really to do it. And there was a time, U.S. Steel and U.S. Petroleum, they were just huge monopoly, Rockefeller and all those people. So much so that the government, the DOJ, have to come out with an antitrust act to kind of break the monopoly. That's why it's called antitrust. They use a personal trust arrangement. So it's... I think we all agree some kind of intervention.
Yeah.
It's just what intervention.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But aren't like people like Rockefeller, they very much symbolizes the American dream itself.
Yeah, so what happened, of course, before Rockefeller at US Steel, Carnegie is another tycoon. And talking about, they started to ask people to work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. So there was a beginning of time. They say you need to have labor, you need to have some human rights and things like that. So eventually it became, there was a riot at the factory. And this is just an example how small US government was at that time. I mean, in terms of the concept. When they have the riot, the federal government did not have any military to go and stop. They had to go and hire mercenary. Yeah, so they don't even have soldier. So that was how, of course, different presidents have different big and small, but of course, since, like Jefferson especially kind of made the whole government small. So, yeah, I mean, I think, Lara, you're going back to the free market concept, it's like, yeah, I think generally we all are for free market, right?
Yes.
And it's just how free,
How free, how extreme.
How extreme, and should there be some regulations? Like for example, let's use another example we use sometimes in this show, which is big tech. So they'll be like, oh, you don't like YouTube, you don't like Google, don't use it lah. That's free market,
Yeah.
But what if you have such a monopoly positions? It's not like if I don't want to use Android, I go to iPhone. It's the same. I also get kicked out from the App Store quite easily. Apple has such a big issue with all the app developer and things like that. Then you go to Android and things like that. People are cancelled from YouTube all the time. So it's like both sides are the same. Then they say, okay, you go and start a new third platform.
Very small, very tiny.
I mean, Microsoft have failed, Nokia have failed, BlackBerry have failed. So those are the situations for me personally where I feel some intervention is needed. But again, how much?
Yeah.
But of course, coming from Malaysia, I think we can agree we have too much intervention.
Yeah, totally. So next one, because corporations can't be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. For me, personally, I disagree though. I mean, for one, I'm not for environmentalists. So I guess that's why I disagree. But also, at the same time, I don't think, like, I personally agree with ESG, sustainability, all this sort of thing. So hence, I don't think regulation would be, because it just creates another platform for big government.
But what about, like, in recent time, you have some chemical waste thrown into the river. What about those? And so, I mean, is it possible to differentiate? Like, generally, we are not here in this show, we are not very beyond the weaponization of climate change, I guess. Is it, if really you want to preserve Earth and things like that, that's fine. But the way it's done, leading to things like carbon credit and things like that, they eventually the next thing they'll say, you can't emit,
Yep.
you can't do this, you have to use electric car, you have to use public transport. So I mean, we see control there, but what about legitimate pollution?
Yeah, that I do agree. Some sort of intervention, like you don't have open
Again, it's
burning.
a question of degree.
It is. I mean, you don't have like open burning. I mean, those sort of things which are generally causing the whole, Malaysia not livable. I think that would be something that, we do need regulation, but again, it's like what you say, to what degree?
Yeah, so just to our viewers and listeners, this shows again exactly why context is important.
Yes.
Why so it's good, when we ask questions like this and having a discussion. Then we know. Then I know, like for example, Lyra's position. I totally agree, because when she say disagree, she's thinking ESG. She's thinking the weaponization of climate change agenda and things like that, which. Yeah, I also totally disagree. But again, it's how the question is framed, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's very interesting. If we look at the question, it's like, because corporation cannot be trusted to voluntarily. So it's like, we have to build out some regulation to force the corporation to do the environment friendly things. So what if the corporate himself do the environmental benefit from the environmental friendly things. That's the first point I want to point out. And another thing is that I think the underlying point of this question is also want to point out that corporation in the nature, they want to pursue money benefit only. So I don't believe that. I still believe some of the tycoons, some of the corporation do benefit all of us. Like the thing we use right now, we have so many good facilities, lighting, and a microphone, benefit all of us. Yeah, it's my point of view. But actually, I choose disagree because of the environment. We cannot force someone to. It's like, just I agree with you. We want to be environmental friendly, but don't force us to do that.
Yeah.
Persuade us, but not force us.
So like if you look at Malaysian context, usually, I mean, you compare it to the American system. You see, American, especially during Trump's administration, he kind of removed a lot of regulation because he wanted business to do. But for Malaysia, every time we think about regulation, we think more of cost. You see, like SME will be like, oh, I have to pay for this. I have to train my staff. I mean, they think more in terms of dollars and cents rather than the policy itself. So it's I think it's
because the regulation being misused for years by the government, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, generally, David, I definitely agree with you that we are more for voluntary. Like recently, the last budget just announced voluntary disclosure for tax. I mean, they've been doing that for a while already. And remember, it happened in 2018 under then Finance Minister Lim Guang Yen. But did you hear one of the stories that because they also do that kind of promotion, and when people go there, then the RLB go and do tax investigation above and beyond your volunteer. Because you volunteer, you must have something else. It's I think that kind of defeats the whole spirit of voluntary disclosure, right? So that's why I don't know this time what's the take up of this offer. So that's why people kind of still a bit sore about Lim Guang Yen.
The mistrust of the government.
Yeah. I mean, it's not his fault. At that time, I think he was really, really focused on trying to balance.
Yeah.
Because we were paying so much interest for YNDB and things like that.
Yes.
Still is, by the way.
Yes.
So I don't envy the job. It's like whatever you do, people will say they support or they not support. That's the reality of politicians. But anyway, some more question. So maybe you should go to the next tab. This is economic, right? So nationalist, so you can see the broad super theme.
Yeah, but through the discussion, I found very, very interesting to see from different perspective, different how we view the questions. It's really different.
Yeah, I guess one of the purpose for this episode is, and I hope all our viewers and listeners will go and do the test. And not like we try to persuade you to be more right, more left, more authoritarian or things like that. Not at all. But more like, do you when you say you support a certain policy or certain political party, does it match the actuality? Now, of course, I mean, there are criticism. The survey is not accurate. It's more from a Western political perspective, which is true. I mean, the author already said, look, this is more from Western democracy point of view. But I feel like we do have a portion of that because we inherited Westminster system. Yeah. But of course, our own Malaysian flavor.
All authority should be questioned.
Now we're going to the social construct, okay?
Yep.
You guys can talk first.
How about you? You start first.
No, for me, I answer disagree because I feel like there are certain authority structure placed over our life. Now, of course, like in light of the last couple of years with COVID and vaccine and all these things, there is an increasing distrust over establishment, over government. But still, when you put it like that, all authority, what about parental authority? What about education authority? I feel like if you are someone like super libertarian, that means I can do all things as long as I don't disturb you. That's the super libertarian. But it's like, I don't know. To me, it is not very. Nobody is so smart that you can be totally independent all the time. We all have people that we lean on, that we develop and things like that. So, if to answer the question as yes, that means you are saying that all these foundations are not important. So that will be the way I view it. But of course, if people view it more from a establishment authority point of view, then yeah, I mean, agree may have some validation.
Because I choose agree.
So maybe you're thinking more from establishment.
Yeah. I'm thinking like,
I'm
thinking like if because I'm thinking another extreme is like we all cannot question our authority. It's like nothing lah. So but the question is asking all authorities should be questioned. So maybe I'm more clean to your kind of perspective.
Yeah, actually, now you mentioned, question doesn't mean you go against it, because let's say you think about it and ultimately you think, okay, this is good for me, I'm going to submit to that. Then that's still fine, you know. So if the question is like, oh, you should go against the authority, then that's like the anarchy already.
Yeah, but I feel like the question is asking is like we have to like oppose or some protest to the authority because I feel like I smell that the intention maybe.
I guess. I think it's trying to see whether you are authoritarian or libertarian. But Lara, what's your take?
Well, I think they should be questioned because I wasn't thinking more like a civil disobedience sort of perspective. It's more like, I mean, just looking back at the lockdown policies, I mean, why can't we have the right to question your credibility in leading us? Because you say you're the COVID-19 experts, but obviously, I mean, we can't even question your credibility. We don't know what's your qualifications and how can you be so sure that everything that you say must be right? So I think from that perspective, I think we should have that right of like just expressing. I mean, it doesn't mean that we are going against the government. It just means that at least we are very well informed of the whole thing.
I mean, if you put it like that, I definitely agree with you. Now, do you remember during the COVID time, some politicians are so arrogant, they'll be like, you don't like my policy, you vote me out. You know, some of them really talk like that, you know, and it's like, now, of course, this is talking about in democracies, but what about you are in a system that doesn't even have voting?
Some country name comes to my mind.
Yeah, you know what I mean or not? It's like, then how, you know, how, and remember, I think kind of bring back to the last episode we did, right?
I think can summarize this question is like the question about the freedom of expression. Yeah, whether we can express or not. Because what is the context and what is the extent we can talk about, question about the authority. So it's linked with freedom of expression.
Now that you both put it like that, I think if I redo the question, I probably will agree. Probably.
So maybe our audience should do the test first before.
Actually, I did it twice and the result is pretty close.
But your perspective is really important. It's interesting also because we cannot, no one is an island. We have to pair with somebody to do something in this earth. Okay,
moving on. I didn't expect this part too, but it's very interesting when you look at the question. when you kind of discuss it, right? When you do it, you kind of feel like, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting.
Interesting question. Parents sometimes have to smack their children. How about we have the parents here?
I mean, it's like, you talk about culturally, but of course personally, I mean, me and my wife, we do that. And in Malaysia, of course, it's very acceptable still, culturally acceptable from a moral, religious, social point of view, also very acceptable. But of course, I think, again, from the Western point of view, like in Australia, for example, even in the Nordic states, I think there was one case. Remember one Malaysian couple I think in Sweden or whatever. I think because I think he was even charged in court.
Wow.
Yeah, and the children had to go to social service because he kind of, I don't know, some corporal discipline on the children. I don't know who reported it. So again, to me, it's like, there is I believe in an inherent authority of the parents, because it's like, hey, there's a reason why when you reach 18, it's called age of majority. You can decide for yourself. But before that, you know, too bad. You are stuck with your parents. So from the legal point of view, unless there's abuse or certain serious neglect, then the state shouldn't take away the right, because it's not the responsibility of government to raise the children.
Interesting
point. It's like, so, but of course, it's like again, that's why I think this question looks at the level of authoritarian belief that you have, but also how much you think state should intervene. So you look at the Western country, they believe they should intervene in raising our children.
Yeah, as I look at the question, I also feel like it's the spank. The spank is spank to death one kind of things.
Not really.
No.
Yeah. But I for me, it's like I'm more pro discipline children with this kind of method because I grew up like that, and I feel the goodness of discipline by them,
Yeah.
but cannot go to some extreme because some of my friends go up have some trauma because
of course,
beaten
of course.
by the parents.
So that's why
That's not
when
good.
you go into the territory of abuse and neglect, that's where, that it becomes a crime. That's why
Yep.
in Malaysia we've seen a lot of child abuse cases, which is legitimate, and unfortunately, even during COVID's time, it's underreported, and all the education are sort of remote.
The next part here, those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support.
Oh my, this is an interesting one.
Social justice.
Yeah, this is okay. Maybe Lara, you can start first. This is a very interesting question.
Well, personally, I would agree though, because
Maybe you'd like to explain to our viewers and listeners what you understood the question is trying to get.
so I felt like you are not disabled. You actually have the opportunity, but perhaps you are a bit more spoiled. Like just you think like, no, government has to feed me. I felt like it's more leaning towards like a lot of government support. Again, it goes back to like big government, the underlying issues of big government. But I felt like if you don't work, then you have no right to complain about, being unable to have a good life.
Okay, let me be the devil's advocate. Okay? So it's like, I'm just thinking about Malaysian context. So someone will be like, okay, I'm not disabled. I still have 2 hands, 2 feet, but I never finish high school, and no one wants to employ me because I don't have SPM, and my English is not good enough. I'm very weak. I can't do labor work. So you can think about the justifications, and of course you look at our nation's policy. Sometimes they look at your income, and if you are not reaching a certain threshold, then they want to help you directly. But again, these are more like patching. It's like, oh yeah, you get 500 this month, you're happy for a while, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem.
Yep.
So it's like teach a person to fish rather than give the fish. So I think if from that point of view, I agree with you. But what about those people who are seriously and actually disadvantaged? But then the next question I'm thinking is, who makes the determination? And that's always a big challenge in Malaysia. It's like we can't identify people correctly.
Yeah.
And that's why we talk about the last episode. You want to say cut off subsidy, then the rich people will get their poor friends to go and pump the car for them. Then it's like, oh man, you brought a 4,000
And charge them.
cc car, BMW 7 Series or whatever, that kind of thing. It's like,
Income 2,000 a month.
so in fact, my father-in-law say, why don't we look at the car?
Oh yeah. Oh.
If you drive expensive car above a certain threshold,
Yeah.
That's
Then you-
legit.
I think that might be workable. It's like,
Yes, it is.
then my V and all those sales will just go out, right? Okay, anyway.
Oh, very interesting. The point
Yeah,
of
but
view.
what about you? I mean, David, what do you think? I mean, this is, I think that question is going to be one of the big philosophical battle
Exactly.
in going into the future. And
Exactly.
even Malaysia, the soul of our social economy is kind of based on that question.
Yes. Despite of the ratio or whatever, but this question, just now you said, in spite of giving the fish or teach them how to fish, I'm like, if the people, if that group of people, they didn't even know how to fish,
Yeah, exactly.
you cannot teach them. They never know, So how do we kind of settle, if we are government, how do we kind of settle these kind of people? Do we need to give some money or some subsidy to them to let them just to survive in this country. Maybe yes,
Yeah.
but the goal have to be we have to make our mind that we increase to the minimum point of this kind of situation in our nation. So
Yeah.
we have the end game, we have the now current situation, and the thing we have to deal with, and where are we heading to?
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
me, I think this kind of question we cannot easily agree or disagree.
Yeah.
lah.
Yeah.
It
David,
depends.
I like what you're saying is that there should be a goal. It's like, for example, NEP has a goal.
Yeah.
But halfway through, unfortunately, everyone screw up. Okay, and I mean that's just a reality. From wanting to help a certain class of people. Now, by the way, do you know that original NEP is not even race based?
Oh, yeah.
It's really based on poverty. So it's supposed to help all the race, but somehow, by design or accident, we don't want to speculate too much. But the reality is, it helped a very select percentage, basically those with direct leverage and position in GLC. So you create a uber rich elite, but by far and large, you have, there's no development to help the hardcore poor. And what you say just now really kind of, and that's will be one of the reasons why I feel like Malaysia is still in transition. We are not, and generally, yes, Lyra, I totally agree with you that the philosophy about if you can work, you should
Yes.
work.
Agree.
But then there's that side. Do we even have work?
Yep,
Do we
yep,
even
yep.
have work? And even if we work, can you even work?
Yep.
So some people, I mean, unfortunately, we all are university graduate and things like that. But increasingly, people graduate from university and are not employable.
Yeah.
And it's a systemic problem. It's an education problem. It's a society problem. So from that point of view, I do agree with David that, maybe there's a bit of transition,
Yes.
but we need to say this is the end game.
Yep.
And
Agree.
so end game may require a few years of hardship, a few years of cutting expenses, a few years of reducing subsidy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's going to cost political points.
Yeah.
That's why politicians are not so eager. So I imagine if you're an advisor to anyone and say we need to have an end game, they'll be like, David, you are not realistic. You want me to be voted out, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you win election?
So, anyway. But these are the kind of questions that kind of make you think where you stand from an economic point of view. And it's like, I mean, you go out, you see people who are needy, and people may look for you if you are doing well. How are you going to help? And I think these are all questions that people need to think about.
Yes. Wow. What a discussion.
So maybe we could just have one more question.
One more
before we-
question.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
This is going a bit longer than we think.
But
It's
I
okay.
like
This will
the
be part one
discussion.
already, all right?
No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. So that's mean public broadcasting channel or TV, but sponsored by the country.
Yeah, I guess it's like if you are media, lah. I mean, so if you're media, you are. I mean, of course, for the longest time, media is always public. It's always governments. It's only the last 30 years, even in Western nations, where they start to have private. Like CNN is like 30 years only. Like this kind of cable news. So I guess this is how I interpret the questions. Not question. The statement is, if you truly, because the media has been called the fourth estate, you're supposed to balance the other big three, right? The legislature, the judiciary, the executive. But if you take money from governments, then does that mean you owe them a duty? Does that mean maybe they have some undue influence? We don't know, But in Malaysia, of course, we have seen that all the time, right? I mean, these days I think they're quite okay already. Astro Awani, all those are quite alright. But I remember the days, even the Star, Utusang. I mean, these are like just like propaganda. So if you now, by the way, we always mention in this show, it's okay to have propaganda thinking.
Yes,
it's
agree.
okay to have opinion.
Agree.
As long as you tell people like it's opinion and don't pretend that it's news.
Yeah.
So it's like you can support Perikatan all you want. You can support harapang all you want. Just be clear about your position, but don't pretend to be neutral and then you support one side. I guess that's where the question is trying to get,
Yeah.
Will the impartiality be affected if they receive funding? And I guess there are things which we don't know, the percentage of funding. Sometimes like you think about RTM, they have a few thousand staff, and the director could be thinking, if I don't do something which, I'm talking about the past. If I don't do something that kind of favor BN, maybe I'll lose my job. Maybe my whole team will lose a job. People think like that. So, but anyway, that's how I understood. But how do you all answer?
I look at this question is more like to funding an independent media, but it's more with less linkage with government, like using the taxpayer money to fund an independent, so-called independent media. But my concern is the independence. How do you make sure the media is independent? So if we look at Taiwan, there are Taiwanese independence media funded by taxpayer money.
Correct.
They do have agenda actually.
Yeah, of course.
And why the people have to fund? Why the taxpayer money have to fund the agenda-based media? Yeah, just like what you say just now, you can mention it that you have agenda, but in this case, most of the thing we see is that they want to try themselves the most in the neutral, but at the end,
actually, it's more like propaganda already.
Yeah. The result is different. So my answer is don't agree, but I do believe we have to figure out how to secure the independence of the media. Yeah.
Now, by the way, it's ironic that when you look at America and UK, for example, so in US you have the PBS, Public Broadcasting System, then you have BBC,
Yep.
which are anti-government, anti their government all the time.
Yeah.
So over there they have gone the other spectrum, whereas like Taiwan example, they are basically propaganda for the ruling party.
Maybe, I don't know, but they you will see the agenda there. So it's more like the fourth force, as I mentioned. Is it good or bad? For me, currently I'm thinking.
Yeah, in some countries it's very obvious, like China, CCTV and things like that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 15.
Yeah, those are state-run. They don't even pretend. And in Malaysia, of course, used to be TV1, TV2, but now I think they are sort of kind of irrelevant already.
Yeah. So, how about you?
Well, I actually agreed though that they shouldn't receive public funding, but because I felt like but to what you guys said just now, them being the fourth estate. So if they are being the fourth estate, should they receive taxpayers' money funding? Because will that actually cause the whole media team to have that perspective whereby you work for the people rather than you work for the government? But then again, we don't see that in Malaysia. And we have seen how all this cable TV have been just weaponized worldwide. So, and what we really see throughout, especially over the last 2 years, we really see the independent, like alternative media, and most of them, they have their own private sponsorship and stuff like that. So because of that, I guess, because of what has happened over the last 2 years, that's why I disagree that they should receive public. I agree that they shouldn't receive public funding.
Now, a related question will be: Do you support a government public media?
Government
Like for example, RTM1, RTN2. That's basically public media, they are not private. So, because we talk about propaganda and things like that, but let's say it's very clear this is for public. This is like funded by government. So I can imagine scenario like you have breaking news, you have flood information and things like that. You still need those kind of broadcasting. And yeah, generally, do you agree that government can use money for this kind of activity?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
But I guess the problem is when that becomes propaganda, political propaganda for the political party.
Yeah.
And that happens. And so I guess it's the way it's structured and how this. So, for example, in US, PBS is not under the government. It's under like FCC. But FCC, of course, is appointed by president, but he or she is not answerable to the president. See, so the American balance and check and balance is more like, yes, there is some kind of, I can appoint, but once appoint, I can't really control what they want to do. So unless you go and challenge in court. So but that's a bit sidetrack. But I'm just thinking about, like you mentioned Taiwan or other country, when you use it for political party, what is the remedy for the people? Of course, if we go the free market way, don't watch lah, let them die lah. Nobody, pay advertisement to them. So that's what happened with TV1, TV2, Utrusang.
Yeah.
Eventually, they went bust.